Welcome to the Ice Prep Podcast, Episode 2. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And as well, thanks to everybody who is joining us on CJBK just before the Leafs game, which should be a good one tonight. It has been a crazy week, and I have to say, Pat, I am so excited that we record on a Thursday.
Yeah, the timing for this was fantastic. There's nothing better than waking up and seeing news on your phone.
It's been a long time since Pat's been able to send me something before I see it in the morning. Had the big news of the day that everybody's been waiting for, and I think it's that relief of like, oh, we finally don't have to wonder where Jack Eichel is going.
It's over.
We will get to that later in the show, but we do want to start with talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs, because if you remember last episode, we were kind of hard on them.
Yeah.
Like, not just a little bit. We were a lot hard on them. A lot hard on the Stars, and they haven't lost since.
Well, so they took our advice then, is really what happened. So I know that they're obviously avid listeners to our second episode now. But in all seriousness, no, watching them, they looked good for the most part. I mean, there were some sloppy parts. Like, don't get me wrong, the Detroit game wasn't the creamed of the crop sort of situation, but at the same time, they looked a lot better. They looked a lot more confident, and especially Marner. I'll eat crow. I'll call it out. I was saying that it looked like he had lost his hands, and well, I mean, I think everybody saw that goal that he put in the other night, and yeah, he's definitely found his hands again.
Well, it's a good night when Matthews pots two, Marner gets one. That, let's be honest, that's going to be on highlight reels for the rest of the year, probably years to come. And it seems like what the Leafs needed was that Morgan Rielly contract signing to go through. Who knew?
Yeah, it seems it's a tough one to really kind of connect the dots of the two, but as much as he isn't the biggest star on the team, he is such a huge part of their culture. He's like the heart of their team. So when you've got a person that's sitting there and they're unsure, they're really not 100% sure if they're going to be there next year, that weighs on the team, because they're looking at him going like, well, are you still going to be a part of this? Are we going to be the team that, wins a cup maybe and just vanishes? You look at Tampa Bay, the same thing happened. Like, that entire line on Tampa Bay is gone. There's so many people that left after that cup win. So yeah, that era of unknown can totally cause that.
And he's a player that you have to remember, until it was announced that Tavares was the captain, a lot of people thought that it could be Morgan Rielly. Even before that, he's been kind of pegged as being the captain of that team, the leader of that team. He is one of their, well, I guess they have that with their stars now. They haven't really traded for their stars, minus Tavares, where they draft them, they get them going. But it's good to see. And we were talking about this before, and I was actually talking about this with my father-in-law this morning, is that his contract is a bargain. And as much as you look at $7.5 million over 8 years, Phil Kessel comes off the books next year. The cap will go up a tiny bit. It's not going to go up as much as what everybody thought. But what he makes now, plus Kessel, plus that cap, that is his contract. So for the Leafs, they're technically not going to be adding any money. It's just they can't add anybody else. I think it's a steal of a deal, and the fact that they have him for 8 years, maybe the window for the Leafs is bigger than we thought.
Yes and no, because you also got Campbell's contract negotiations, and like you said, they don't have a lot of wiggle room when it comes to contract space. So they might be kind of looking at it at a bit of a win now situation, because they may not be able to afford Campbell, and Campbell is playing to get a paycheck, and as well as, unless he's willing to take that discount, unless he's willing to take that hometown discount,
which we've only seen Morgan Rielly do so far, but he was quoted after the last game saying that he does want to play here. He loves the players, he loves the city, so the Leafs have that going for them. But they did hear that with two of their other stars that make over $10 million a year. So it's a balancing act. If you're the Leafs, you've seen Frederik Andersen leave healthy. He is the best goalie in the league right now, playing for the undefeated, as of this recording, Carolina Hurricanes. How can Leaf fans not look at that and go, well, we lost 2 goalies to the waiver wire a few years ago, and they both had amazing seasons outside of the Leafs. We've lost Frederik Andersen. Do we really want to lose Jack Campbell and be banking on Mrazek, who we have under contract, who in his first game for the Leafs pulled his groin, and he looked all right in his last game, but Leaf fans have to be just banking on, please, Campbell, sign for cheap and continue to be good, because the longer this goes on, the more expensive his contract may get for the Leafs.
Yeah, and I think it's not only be good, but also stay healthy. They don't want to have to rely on a tandem of Mrazek and Hutchinson. Ooh. I mean, as a Colorado fan, Hutchinson, he saved our bacon a little bit, but yeah, I wouldn't want to rely on him to be your second tandem, and they've had to for so long. But one thing I actually did want to point out, you mentioned that Freddie Andersen is the best goalie in the league as of recording, so this is the recording on the Thursday. The second best is another former Leaf, and that's James Reimer. So the Leafs, you know what? They have the right idea with goaltenders. They're just like a couple years early.
Or they have them in their system and then they trade them away and then they become a Stanley Cup champion. If you know a goalie is going to be good if they've ever worn the Leafs outfit at one point, because yeah, as you said, Hutch almost single-handedly pulled the Avs through a round. He won, 2 games in a row for them, ended up losing the other one because the Avs couldn't score. So goalies are weird, but they're the best.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So that, and Leafs, we were talking before, that Marner goal against Vegas was a thing of beauty. And kudos to Robin Lehner, who after the game, he is a very open player. If you don't know his story, it's one to read up on. And a lot of people often give him a lot of grief just because of how open he is. A lot of that has to do with the English second language thing. But he was asked about the Kyle Beach situation, and he was very, very open and honest. And here's what he had to say after the 4-0 loss that he had just suffered.
Everything I'm doing is for Kyle Beach. He hasn't been given the benefit of the doubt for a long time. I think it's time we give him the benefit of the doubt and support him. Regards to yesterday's call, I don't think it's my place to comment on it and what was said, but I think we have to do more. We have to look into it and do what's right for Kyle. That's the main point, my perspective, and wherever that leads to. But it was tough timing. It was a lot of teams playing games and stuff like that too. So I think I encourage more teams to just talk about it and making sure that we're a part of that. This doesn't happen again. It's not just on NHLPA or NHL or anyone. All players need to take this seriously if we want change and culture change and whatever. That's about it from me.
And he had answered that just after the 4-0 loss to the Leafs. And since then, a handful of the Leafs have actually come out to speak about the Kyle Beach situation, including Wayne Simmons.
First of all, I want to send my condolences, to Kyle Beach. Everything that happened was heartbreaking. And, I found myself watching that interview, I started to tear up a little bit. I think the thing that, got me was when, they asked him, about the 16-year-old, and he apologized. And to me, he has nothing to apologize for. He was the one who was wronged. And, this is something that's systemic. I find in the NHL, when something happens bad, the guys are afraid to speak out because of repercussions. And, that's something that's definitely got to change. It's unacceptable. And, I think, within our dressing room, within, a lot of, I think, other teams' dressing rooms, now the culture is kind of starting to change and starting to roll over, considering the new blood, fresh blood that's coming into the league. So, we as players, I'm in lockstep with, what Robin Lehner said last night. More players got to speak up, more players got to do their part. We don't want this to continue to happen. As we go down the line here, we got to make it better, for the guys that are coming in, after us. It's not about us anymore. It's about what happens, to the young kids that are coming into the league now. And, everyone, I feel everyone must be held accountable, whether it's the NHL, the NHLPA. Everyone has to be held accountable. There's no excuses, and this can't just be another fleeting moment where it's here now and gone tomorrow.
So do you feel the younger guys are more open to the conversations when you say that you think there's a change happening? Or?
I think everyone within locker rooms right now are open to this conversation. It's something that's incredibly saddening, and to see that happen, I know I was in the league back then, when that happened, and it just rips my heart out to see what Kyle Beach has gone through, and that he's had to sit, with that pain and that anguish for the last 11 years, not being able to speak his mind, speak his truth, and I think that's a shame. Obviously guys just asking each other, situations, and sorry guys. A conversation is kind of more centered around, like how unbelievable it was, and the fact that something that actually got brought up, during the time could get passed over by so many people. I think that's the biggest, crime, especially to Kyle Beach. That's something that should have, been handled immediately. Something like that it's so, how do I say this? It's, I don't really have words to like what I'm going through, what I'm processing through my mind. It's unacceptable. I don't know, if we can have, an independent arbitrator or something like that, that's outside of the league, to where, players can speak up, so that, it's just not in the hands, of the teams of the NHL, so that there's an outside view, an outside scope, to where, they're not thinking about, whether, who's getting punishment here, or who's going to, get taken out of a GM spot or a coaching spot or something like that, because, when it comes to, sexual assault and a lot of other matters in this league, people shouldn't be afraid to speak up. People shouldn't be afraid, to tell the truth, without fear of repercussion.
Has it shaken your faith in the PA?
Quite frankly, yeah, it has.
All right, we're back, and I think that it's time for us to shift our conversation to talk about what everyone wants to hear about, and that is Jack Eichel is now a Las Vegas Golden Knight.
Which is who would have thought? Well, the big rumor, of course, started on Twitter that Calgary had this package that had Matthew Tkachuk in it, 2 first-rounders, a 2nd-rounder, who knows what else, probably their old mascot, and everybody was going, well, why would Buffalo say no to that? That is Matthew Tkachuk. He is probably going to be the future captain of the Calgary Flames. He is a unique power forward in the league. And then things started to trickle out later on in the day that were like, yeah, no, actually, that Calgary one might be fake. Which then led everybody to looking at, well, there's only one other team everybody's talking about, and that is the Vegas Golden Knights. And lo and behold, the new first line for the Vegas Golden Knights, it's all on the IR right now.
Oh, no. I mean, as much as that sucks, when they come back, holy, that is going to be a nightmare. That will not be fun to play against. I am not looking forward, as a West Coast fan, I am not looking forward to seeing Jack Eichel in my side.
No kidding. Like, what team wants to have the first line that you're facing be Max Pacioretty, former captain, Mark Stone? Was he the captain of the Senators? No, I think he was an assistant captain there. But
I think
Mark,
so, yeah.
Mark Stone, who's the current captain of the Vegas Golden Knights, and Jack Eichel, the former captain of the Buffalo Sabres. That is an unreal first line. Like, that is an all-time first line, though we won't see potentially what it looks like until the playoffs, if Vegas can make it, because now that Jack Eichel is a member of the Vegas Golden Knights, he can get the artificial disc replacement surgery. And that's where this whole thing stemmed from with Buffalo. If you're a bit out of the loop, the long of the short, he wanted a surgery that has never been done before in the NHL. It's been done in the NFL. It's been done for an MMA champion, never in the NHL. So the Buffalo Sabres and their doctors basically said, no, you are going to get the recommended fusion surgery. Eichel said no, and this has been kind of ongoing. Everybody thought that he was going to be traded in the summer, which would have made more sense because there's about a 4-month, give or take, recovery window from this surgery. So if we're doing our math right now, that would mean a little bit into March, that is when Jack Eichel could potentially be skating with Vegas. Now, we don't know if that means on the ice practicing, if it means he's wearing a contact jersey in practice, or if he's fully in the lineup with Vegas, though a lot of people, including myself, are already thinking that it's going to be like the Kucherov situation where he's probably going to be good to play by mid-March, maybe April, and we won't see him wearing the gold helmet until game 1 of the playoffs, unless they are in a playoff fight and they need Eichel.
See, and I disagree with that. I don't think that they're going to do the full Kucherov because that is a really, really different situation. What Tampa had with Kucherov was very different because he had already played with the team. He already had the chemistry with his line mates, and they knew his flow, his rhythm. Even on the power play, they understood where to be. They've been playing together for long enough. Eichel's coming in, and he is brand new. I think the only person that he's had some experience with in the past is Leonard, which is, it's always good to know your goalie, but it's probably a little better to know your line mates. So if that's the case, if I was sitting there and I'm looking at the lineup and I know that he is good enough to get on the ice and start playing, I would try my absolute darndest to get him out at least 3 to 4 games before the playoffs, as long as they're comfortable in their spot, to see what he's like. He might have regressed. He hasn't played for over a year. And he's got this surgery that's never been tested on the ice. So they need to test him. If they don't test him, you're going to see some incompatibility, in my opinion.
Sometimes, not always. I can give you a prime example. Now, this is a defender. He was a teenager at the time, but we can go back, 2 years ago now. You've got the Hobey Baker winner coming in for Colorado, just finishes, wins the March Madness, the Frozen Four, comes into Colorado's defense, and within one game, everyone knew who Cale Makar was. He had zero, and I mean zero, experience with any of the Colorado Avalanche players. He slotted in, and he has not been taken away from that first defender slot. Eichel, I feel like, is one of those players that any team that he would go on, barring maybe Pittsburgh or Edmonton, slots in as your number one center without problem. He's got the hands to finish. He's got the hands to pass. It might take them a little bit to get those reps down of, we can do the blind pass without looking. I know where you're going to be. But when players are that good, when they are franchise superstar style players, which somehow Vegas now seems to have 4 or 5 of, they are the Thanos of the hockey world. They've got their infinity gauntlet now of all these former captains and stars. I think that it will not matter. He will slot in, and we're just going to see him absolutely dominate.
I can't see it. I can't see it. I know that the Cale Makar example is a really good one, and don't get me wrong, but that was a very different situation. He's coming in. He's warmed up. He literally...
he's coming in cold.
Exactly. So Cale Makar came in, and he had just finished playing in and winning the Hobey Baker, like you mentioned. And they flew him out. He pretty much touched the trophy and was like, all right, I'm off to Calgary to try and score my first goal within the first 18 minutes of this game. And which was great. Don't get me wrong. As a Colorado Avalanche fan, I pretty much threw my TV remote through the TV watching it. But at the same time, he came in. He was warmed up. He was ready. He was good to go. Eichel has been sitting for over a year, and he's going to be doing rehab. Obviously, he's been, training in the offseason as much as he can, but he's having surgery. He's been cold. He's been cold. He's been cold.
He did get some reps in, though. He was spotted practicing in Boston in the offseason, if you remember back to that. That was when everybody was going, wait, is it going to be the Taylor Hall and Jack Eichel reunion tour in Boston? No, that wasn't the case. But the one thing I remember hearing an interview way back when it was on then 31 Thoughts, the doctor who was wanting to do this surgery for Eichel, it's insane how short the timeline is for Jack Eichel to potentially get back on the ice just skating. And the difference with this compared to the Fusion, I just turned my neck. He wouldn't be able to do that without turning more of his body, which is a big part of why he wanted this surgery that's never been done before in the NHL. We've seen Jack Eichel play for the last few seasons, not being able to turn properly, having immense pain every time he did, and he was the best player, one of the best players in the league at that time. I don't care if he's coming in cold. If he doesn't have pain, there is no stopping him. Honestly, what team? Maybe Colorado, if they can not be injured, stands a chance. But Vegas just beats them in the playoffs anyway, so it doesn't matter. And now they're finally getting their number one center. I hard disagree with you on this. Jack Eichel, he will not be coming in cold. He is going to come in looking like Austin Matthews as a rookie, scoring 4 goals and saying, "What's up?"
Don't forget he got hurt that season, like not long after that. So sure, let's use that comparison.
Matthews has been hurt pretty much every season though, but it seems like it's a superstar thing unless your name is Alexander Ovechkin, let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
One thing to add to this as well, because we mentioned the trade that he is a part of Las Vegas. Of course, going the other way was Alex Tuch. You've got a defender and then 2 conditional picks. The first rounder is top 10 protected, but there's something else that came out about an hour or two before we recorded this, that the Sabres made a second trade. And this was because of they had to keep themselves in line with the cap so that they could hit the cap floor, because that's how little they are spending right now. So the Buffalo Sabres acquired Johnny Boychuk from the Islanders, who is on injured reserve right now, for the $6 million cap hit for future consideration. So they basically said, give us the guy, we'll take his full cap hit, and in the future we'll just give you something. So that's how that one's working out, because there's a lot of confusion in how is Vegas and Buffalo going to make this work, because if Buffalo trades Eichel, they'll be below the cap floor, which you're not allowed to do. And if Vegas gets Eichel, even if they're getting rid of these players, so it's a weird balance, and that was the Buffalo side of things. They had to add in a $6 million injured player, which isn't hockey weird that way?
Yeah, the weird math doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, it makes sense, don't get me wrong, but it's still bizarre. And yeah, I mean, Vegas, you're looking at them as well, like you mentioned, with their cap space. Their IR list is getting very long when it comes to how much money is on that IR. So obviously they've had to move Stone onto LTIR as well, because he's injured and all that stuff. So now they're sitting and they what happens when they activate it? Is their bottom 4 just going to be like the janitors?
I think we're going to see somebody ship out. Last year it was who went to Vancouver? Who went to the defenseman? Nate Schmidt. He was traded for basically pennies on the dollar. Vegas is going to have to do that again, because their injured reserve right now. William Karlsson, who you can tell that they're missing. You've got Nolan Patrick, the second overall pick that they acquired for one of their first round picks last year. The entire first line, they are an injured team, and they're just starting. They did not start out well. They're just starting to get things figured out. But I know you don't want to see Vegas make the playoffs, because odds are the Avs would have to play them in either the first or second round. I really want to see Vegas get in with a healthy lineup, because I just think it would be fun. They've got almost an all-star team at the cost of everything else, but we're not looking at what their players are making, like the Leafs being like, well, that's a $50 million 4 players out there. It's like, no, actually, Stone, Pietrangelo, Eichel, and Pacioretty, they make kind of reasonable money.
Mm-hmm. No, they.
It's the same thing. You look at Tampa.
Yeah.
So I know Vegas for you. If it were up to you, they would be where the Coyotes are right now with I believe it's 1 point. But once some of those players get off of injuries, they're going to be climbing back up. Then we'll really start to see what the Pacific Division looks like. Because right now, who would have thought that would be kind of the standings that we're looking at in the Pacific, with the Edmonton Oilers 8-1, the Flames just behind them at 6-1-2, and you must be very happy that you're in the Central, Pat, with your Avs.
I mean, yeah, they're not doing well, just in general, but at the same time, at least it could be worse. It could be far, far worse. But I do have to say that I am not thrilled to see Nashville above us. I'm not really thrilled to see Minnesota in general as a team. I do not like them. And I really sincerely hate seeing St. Louis at the top again. I do not, and I repeat, do not want to watch another game where it is you win this and you get into the playoffs and it's the St. Louis Blues. I've seen it twice. My heart can't handle it. And I just never want to see that again. It is too much for me.
But that makes it so much more fun. And I honestly thought you were going to take that another way when you started, because I thought you were going to say, I can't handle seeing Jordan Binnington swinging his stick at one of my players, and then that player gets a game misconduct and a penalty. And for those not in the loop, I'm sure you've got this etched into your memory, Pat.
Jordan Binnington, he likes to think that he is just one of the best goalies in the league. And don't get me wrong, he is playing pretty well this year. And I'm not trying to discount his abilities. Like, he is far better than I could ever imagine or wish that I could be. But he also continues to do these things that are just absolutely stupid. Just the dumbest things I've seen. And the most recent one that he decided to do was take his... Well, first of all, he took the puck after there was a very large scrum after not a fight, but after a frozen puck. He decided to take the puck and shoot it down towards the Colorado goalie, Darcy Kemper, and then turn around and swing his stick directly into Kadri's face. Who, I mean, yeah, Kadri was kind of jawing at him and, ripping on him because he had just scored on him. And Kadri gets a 10-minute game misconduct, and in theory, so did Binnington. But because of the rules, Binnington got to play the remainder of the game. And I call shenanigans on that. I strongly believe that there needs to be an amendment. If a goalie swings a stick, like, what happens if the goalie literally went up and smacked him in the face with his stick? He would get a 10-minute game misconduct, and he'd probably be suspended the game following for, fingers crossed, or somehow Kadri would get suspended for 5 games. But in theory, the goalie would get suspended afterwards, but he would still be on the ice. He'd still be able to finish the game. Whereas if somebody else went up and did the same thing, they'd be kicked out immediately. So I understand that obviously, goalies are kind of the backbone of the team, and I get that. But if your goalie's going to be making a decision that's as stupid as that, to go up and literally threaten a player, that's what that move was. It was a threat. He was trying to antagonize him, he was trying to instigate a fight there. And it didn't go as well as he had hoped, because apparently he wants to fight every person, but it didn't go as well as he had hoped, and then he gets his 10-minute penalty, and he still gets to play. It doesn't make any sense. There's backup goaltenders, put them in. That rule needs to change, because, one, obviously I'm going to be protective of the team that I favor, but if that happened for any team, I can guarantee if that happened to the Leafs, say Kadri was still on the Leafs and that happened to him while he was playing for them, Leafs fans would be up in arms. Do you think that would come up at the general manager's meeting? Do you think that would come up later on in the summer and say, hey, maybe we should look at this?
Based on the reaction that happened this time, even from reporters and everything. I think there might be some change coming, because this isn't the first time Binnington has done something like this. In the past, he's decided to use his blocker instead, but this time it's a goalie stick, and it's not a light swing. You can find the video online. He just barely misses Kadri. It makes no sense. I agree. It should be, if a minor penalty, yeah, keep the goalie in. If it's a major or a game misconduct, the player is ejected from the game. I don't care if they are about to break an NHL record for the longest shutout streak in NHL history. You can't be allowed on the ice at that point. And, well, that was just one of the strange things. Isn't hockey the best with the weird things that can happen? And they always seem to happen around your Avalanche for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, I know. And, we talked about the injuries last week of, Gerard going out and Stamkos somehow getting away with 2 dirty hits pretty much back to back. And now if you want to look at our injury list, it makes me want to, curl up in a ball, drink excessively, and cry myself to sleep. You've got 2 of our literal first, our top pair defensemen of Devon Taves and Cale Makar are both currently out. Now, Taves might be coming back this weekend. Fingers crossed on that. But still, he's been out for a good amount of time. Mikko Rantanen, he did something in the game the other day, just before the Blues game, actually. And he hasn't returned back to the ice. Andrei Burakovsky, he's day-to-day. Our really interesting player that I think he's both underrated and overrated, Valery Nichushkin, he is out. And our secondary goaltender, Pavel Francouz, he is also out. Now, he's getting closer to coming back, and like I mentioned, Devon Taves is getting closer. Andrei Burakovsky, he's day-to-day, and he's skating again, but in a non-contact. But that is the majority of our star players. The only people missing off that list are Landeskog and McKinnon, and
they were on it recently.
They were, so it's frustrating to see it. But the fact that we are missing 6 key pieces, those are major pieces, and I know that Vegas is also missing very major pieces as well. But we are missing some very key people, and they're still putting up wins or at least fighting. They lost to Columbus in overtime. You've got Bowen Byram, everybody's saying is going to be just as good as Cale Makar. He put in 2 goals, and that was great to see. He was a little bit snake-bitten last year, so it was really good to see him kind of performing and coming out really hot this season. So things like that are really promising to see, but at the same time, we're missing star players, we're missing depth, we're missing a backup. So we had to go back to Jonas Johansson, I do believe was his name, and he was picked up from Buffalo, and he's not a terrible goalie. He does well, but he's definitely a goalie 3. He's more or less our version of Hutchinson. So I hope that we see people get better quick, because it's still early, but every game matters. As the Leafs might kind of know, every game does matter.
Well, you don't want to dig yourself into too big of a hole off the hop. Look at Ottawa Senators from last year, obviously a little bit different of a season. If they don't start their season on such a terrible slide, they get into the playoffs ahead of Montreal, and then everything is completely different. But at the very least, Avs fans and yourself should be happy that after 9 games, you do have the 9 points, and you have not seen anything close to your full roster on any of the nights so far. You actually have 1 more point than Vegas in the same amount of games. Mind you, right now, both divisions are... the Pacific might actually be a little bit stronger, which I didn't think was going to be a thing, based on the Pacific was supposed to be kind of the walkover division this year. But once the Avs start to get going, I have the feeling that they're still, if you look, they are still the odds-on favorite to win the President's Trophy, even though you've got a team in the league that currently has 18 points and they've only played 9 games.
I don't want them to win the President's Trophy. It's a curse.
It's like the EA cover curse. Somebody always seems to get injured after it happens, or winning the President's Trophy never seems to go well. But who knows? We're a 10th of the way through the season, which is crazy to think already. The fact that you're not only with, 1 point, or you don't have a win, or you've only got 3 wins. Imagine Crosby's back on your team, and you still only have 3 wins. Mind you, he's out because of COVID right now, but it's still so early. But at the same time, at least you climbed back to being above 500, because for a while there, you were looking like, is this slide just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse?
Yeah, no, it was tough to watch the games. You could tell that, either people were injured or fighting an injury, and that they were missing key pieces. So it is good to see the fight in them now, like to see them pushing hard against Columbus, who they have fantastic goaltending. They always have. So it is good to see that they are at least fighting for even just a single point. But I mean, the same could be said about your side of things, though. Like you've got a couple, or at least one key injury that's been nagging your team, and he was just starting to get hot. Jack Hughes, he was finally, like I said it to you early on, I said I think he found that gear. We had talked about it multiple times about he was almost there, but he needed to find that next gear, and he hit that next gear, and he hit it hard, and then immediately gets injured.
And it was such a fluke injury. It makes, well, you watch it and you'd think that based on the fact that he had his shoulder dislocated, that it would have been a bad hit. It was just an awkward hit. He's still, I believe, about 4 weeks out at this point. And it's not just Jack Hughes. Dougie Hamilton only played a few minutes last game. He's apparently not at practice, so there's a chance the Devils will be without Dougie Hamilton. And the stats for Dougie Hamilton on the ice compared to when he's not for the Devils, it's like the cheat code is on when Dougie Hamilton is on the ice, and when he's not, the Devils just don't get shots. They get scored on. The one good thing in all of this is that last game, which the Devils did lose 4-0 to the Anaheim Ducks, the backup goaltender was Mackenzie Blackwood. Now, for those who aren't aware, he was one of the 4 players in the NHL that was completely unvaccinated. He had a heel injury as he was recovering from that. Hockey Canada said if you want to play for Team Canada, you have to be fully vaccinated. It was about a day after that when reports started to leak out that one of the unvaccinated players, Mackenzie Blackwood, the goaltender for the Devils, had his first shot. So he is slated to potentially start the next game for the Devils, and he is honestly a game-changing goaltender. He is the only reason why the Devils probably had any wins last year, and he is probably, with Price, who knows his timeline, who knows his health or his mental health, one of the top goalies that Canada could be looking at going into the Olympics. So I'm excited for that, as I'm not excited that Hughes is out, 'cause as you watched him with the puck, and you could tell that something was going to happen every time he was on the ice. If we don't have Dougie, that sucks. But the good news for me is that as of earlier today on Thursday, the Devils have called up one of their prospects from the AHL who it's been unfair. You watch the highlights. He seems to have a wrist shot like Kessel and a slapper kind of like what Matthews has developed. He's a smaller guy, Alexander Holtz, and all over social media, Devils social media right now is just Holtz everything. He lit it up in the preseason as well. So hopefully that kind of brings some spark back, because without Jack Hughes, the Devils have struggled. If we don't have Dougie Hamilton, the Devils have struggled. PK Subban's probably going to get another fine after he just had, I believe, his second or third one of the year for, they called this one tripping. It was a slew foot. Let's be honest. The Devils are in a good place, but I think it's kind of like the Avs in a way that if they don't put themselves into too big of a hole, they stand a chance maybe at making a run.
I mean, you've got a really tough division. So New Jersey, like, as much as they might be in very good shape when it comes to talent, they're a very skilled team, but they're going up against Carolina, the Rangers, Washington, Philadelphia, who's kind of turned it on as of late, the Islanders, and Pittsburgh. That is That's not easy.
It's called the Metrodome for a reason.
Yeah, so at least on my side of things, I have Arizona and Chicago. So those, it could be worse. But
your odds are better to get in the playoffs.
Absolutely. I'm already starting with a 2-team advantage in comparison to New Jersey. And even Columbus. Columbus has really shown, they've taken the offseason that was very, very difficult for them as a team. And they've really kind of come together and really showed that it's the might of the team versus the might of just one. And that to me is the same kind of mentality of why the New York Islanders got so far that they did last year. They're very talented, but they didn't really have any big stars. They had Matthew Barzal, and that's kind of about it. Everybody else was just a solid player, and they just worked well as a team. And I'm kind of seeing that a little bit with New Jersey, but they have the star power on the side of them as well. They work well as a team, but they also have these really strong candidates to be, star players, all-stars on the Canadian or on the national team, I suppose. So it'll be really interesting. I think that honestly the Metropolitan Division is going to be a nightmare to get through.
Well, the worst team in the Metro right now is a 500 team. That's the Pittsburgh Penguins. The worst team in the Atlantic is Montreal. They're 3-8. The worst team in the Central is Arizona. They're 0-9-1. Go to the Pacific, Seattle, 3-6-1. It is unfair being in the Metro. If we're being honest, the Devils probably will not make the playoffs. However, if they can get a solid foundation built for next year, because we finally have players like Andreas Janssen, who they got from the Leafs. He was invisible last year. I'm sorry to say. I was cheering for Mango. I wanted him to step in and just be this unreal player. He kind of just vanished this year. He is, I believe, right now the top scorer for the Devils with Jack Hughes being out. You've got Dawson Mercer, who's rookie for the Devils, who he is doing some amazing things. He's got 5 points right now. Pavel Zacha, who a lot of people have called the first-round bust pick of the Devils, he is becoming a strong center. He's got 6 points. So the Devils have the players, but they definitely are missing somebody like Jack Hughes right now. Who knows? Maybe Holt stays up. They get a healthy Blackwood in behind, and suddenly maybe they're not one of the bottom 4 teams in the Metro, which is still one of the top 10 teams in the East.
Yeah. My question to you then is, so with Mackenzie Blackwood, obviously we're kind of going back to the talks about Eichel here a little bit with coming in cold. So there's not only cold in the sense that obviously he's warmed up, he's practiced, all those things, but he's sat a bit longer than others. And if we look at even Nylander, he started the season late after holding out for a bigger paycheck, and he didn't have the greatest of season after that. And then you've got the other side of starting cold, and it's kind of that cold shoulder from your team. You held out on getting the vaccine that everyone else did, and you decided not to. And then you decided, oh, well, I want to play on Team Canada. And then obviously you said for friends and family. But, I mean, like you said, it's not a coincidence that he got the shot as soon as Team Canada said, oh, yeah, you need to be vaccinated. So are you concerned that with starting cold, both not warmed up and also with the team mate, are you worried that maybe the team might be like, I don't know how I feel about you in my locker room if you're not focused on the team?
I think maybe before, if he was playing unvaccinated, that could have been an issue, but now that he is, that should hopefully be a non-issue. Goalies are weird. A goalie can come in cold. Your starting goalie could have let in 4 goals. You come in completely cold because you were sitting on the bench expecting to just be snacking on peanuts sitting in your pads all night, and then you put up 30 saves and you don't let anything in, or the vice versa happens. Luckily, he did have, with having the heel injury, he was doing practice reps in the preseason with the Devils. He did get that practice in. It's just a matter of, can he come in proper? That is why the Devils spent big money to get Bernier, who he's had his moments. He's been good. He's been bad for the Leafs, or not for the Leafs. Wow, that's a throwback for the Devils. But as a Devils fan, I want him to come in hot and the Devils start playing well, to do really well on this West Coast trip. The realist in me expects that he'll probably look like an average 9-10 save percent goalie, which that for him is bad. He's been a much better goalie than that. So if in the time it takes for Jack Hughes to get back, we can have more wins than losses, I am okay with what happens.
Okay, that makes sense. So, who's your next opponent? So, is New Jersey playing Saturday?
The Devils. I should remember this off the top of my head, but I do not. So they just lost to Anaheim. They've got the back-to-back 10:30 p.m. Eastern East Coast start. So they've got LA tomorrow night, Friday. And then Saturday night, they play against the San Jose Sharks. And if this was last season, you'd be looking at this going, wow, that's a piece of cake, those California teams. I think the California Slaughterhouse is back, and I'm a little worried about that. LA, yeah, they're 5-4-1. They've looked good. San Jose,
yeah,
they're 6-3. What is going... Okay, there's something in the Pacific water that is making these teams that were supposed to be bad good. Is this like the North Division of last year? Just like, oh, it's all bad teams. Somebody has to win, but they're beating everybody?
I mean, I don't know. When you look at it, I mean, obviously you look at Erik Karlsson on the Sharks, and he's injured, so you can't even accredit it to him. But maybe there's some leadership change or something. They did a lot of dumping. They cleared a lot of space. You've got LA, who, they had been playing really poorly for quite a while, so they've been getting some pretty good draft picks. So they've got a really strong young core. Then San Jose, they cleared out space, but also picked up some decent ads, and I think that they're starting to play a lot like how I mentioned with the New York Islanders, where it's a strong team of, really mid-range players. But, I mean, second liners are great players still, better than most people, better than most teams. If you have an entire team of second liners, you're in good shape. And it's kind of feeling like they've somehow scraped together this ragtag team of really decent second liners. And then you look at Anaheim. So you've got, these three teams in California that are suddenly, good again, which I don't like. But it's so bizarre because everyone had kind of counted them out. If you listen to all the projected teams that were going to be going on, and where the standings were going to be, none of them said anything about San Jose or Anaheim. Maybe a little bit for LA, but that's about it.
Just back to the Sharks. I don't want to get too much into this, but I do want to. This is something to bring up because what changed with the San Jose Sharks? Somebody is not with the team, not in the locker room, and it makes you think back. Was it something that Winnipeg was right about, that Blake Wheeler had said, that is Evander Kane a bit of a locker room problem? I don't want to get into it because obviously not a part of that, but
it's interesting.
This San Jose team is doing phenomenal, and I'm really wishing now that those rumors in the offseason that the Devils were going to acquire Timo Meier was true, because he is 11 points in 8 games as of right now.
Yeah, and I mean, right now, that's what New Jersey's kind of hurting for. They're hurting for points. They've lost some pretty big names, and the fingers are crossed that in about a week, 10 days from recording from today. So I guess it would be a week on the weekend. Sunday, November 14th. That is the big game for you. And that is New Jersey versus New York, the Rangers, and the rivalry.
It's crazy that it takes until November 14th for that one to happen. Like, at least we're playing the Islanders on the 11th.
Yeah.
But you want to talk about a very strong schedule coming up. So, as I said, if this was a few years ago, we'd be like, LA, that's nothing. San Jose, it's a walkover. So you got LA, San Jose, Florida, which one of the top teams in the league. Boston, they are coming back strong, then going against New York, as you said, on the 14th, and that will be a back-to-back after facing Boston. You get some reprise against Ottawa, but is it really a reprieve considering that team can put up 6 goals and still lose like 7-6 every game? and then we get to play Florida again after that. So the Devils, I know I said I really hope they have more wins than losses by the time Jack Hughes gets back. Looking at that, I hope we get 2 points in our next 6 games.
Yeah, and actually it's funny that you mentioned the Senators. They look fantastic, I have to say. I know that they're not winning the games. And, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they're, top of the league or anything like that. But if we're going to be doing some comparisons of teams, I want to compare the Ottawa Senators versus Toronto Maple Leafs when the teams are down 2-0. I think that Ottawa is by far the better team when they are at a disadvantage. When they are down in the game, they fight back every single time. And it's astounding. As soon as I hear that Ottawa is losing the game, I switch to that game because the grit, the everything that they pour themselves into on the ice, it is fantastic hockey to watch. They are unbelievably good. The goalie switches into a different gear, and then the other team has to match that. So it just becomes this intensity the whole time. The game is so good. And these are words I'm saying about the Ottawa Senators. And the 14 people in the stands that are watching it, they must love it.
If the Senators can get a few more saves, then it's the same thing as last year. If the Senators can get some saves, they're going to be a playoff team. I think because they've got the longer runway this season, they're going to stand a chance. You know that every Leafs fan is like, ugh, the Senators could have 0 wins in 45 games. Well, they're going to win against the Leafs. But this year, if your team is playing the Ottawa Senators, you may want to watch it because the young stars on that team are kind of unreal.
Yeah, they're putting on a clinic. The one thing I did actually want to bring up that I just noticed, because I was going to ask you one question, but I just wanted to bring this one up real quick. So I don't know if you saw this earlier or if you were a little bit busy, but did you read that the Arizona Coyotes have claimed goaltender Wedgwood off of waivers?
I'm pretty sure I'm not going to look it up at this time, but I'm pretty sure Wedgwood has been a part of the Coyotes before, and he may have actually been claimed by the Devils in the past. So it's just history repeating itself. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. It's a goaltender going on waivers. You kind of expect that some team's going to claim him.
Yep.
But that also shows that it was nobody else. Or I guess Arizona would have first crack, so that doesn't matter. There could have been other teams, but
Yeah, I mean...
seems like a great kid, but
The one thing that disappoints me a bit is it's no longer the Wood lot, because you had Wood, Blackwood, and Wedgwood. So, unfortunately, we've lost a specific type of wood from New Jersey. But the one question, now I saw this earlier on my Facebook feed. It popped up, and I believe it might have been from Jay from TSN. And it was, which team is going to lose to Arizona first?
I did see that.
And
I want to pull up their schedule.
So I have it up here myself. So they play Anaheim on Friday the 5th, then Seattle, then Minnesota, then Chicago, then Nashville, St. Louis. Let's just do that sample size. I think my gut is pointing to Chicago, and I think that is probably where most people's heads are going to be at. But they are away, so they're going to be playing in Chicago, and I don't know. I don't know if they have it in them.
Looking, even though Anaheim just beat the Devils 4-0, I think that they will get their first win before they hit that 10-loss marker. And then, yeah, Chicago should slaughter Arizona, if we're being honest. DeBrincat and Patrick Kane have completely woken up. They should have beat Carolina the other night, but the Canes just have so much fight in them that they came back 2 games in a row. The Canes should have lost, but they came back to win to stay undefeated. I think that we're recording this on Thursday. By the time you hear this, they will have won their first game.
See, and I don't know, because that's the start of a back-to-back. So they play Anaheim on the Friday and then Seattle on the Saturday. And they're playing in Anaheim on the Friday. I don't know. I don't know if they have. Like, Gibson's rolling really well. They're not on a back-to-back. Neither is Seattle. So, I would put money on the fact that they will lose to Seattle. I would still say they're going to beat Anaheim. And my hope is that we get to December and we're still asking this question. Not because I have any grudges against Arizona. They've got the best jersey in the league. But it's just for the drama of it all. And I really, really, really hope that when they roll in to Ontario on January 12th, and they play, they're not even going to be in Ontario. They're just going to be playing Toronto in Arizona. I hope that is when they do their first win, and it is against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and is the only win that they do that year.
With a Phil Kessel hat trick.
I wouldn't need to eat for a month. That would just... Just Steve Dangle's voice alone, just through mitosis or whatever the hell you call it. I don't even know what you would call it. What do plants do? I don't know. But
I think the Earth would shake off his axis slightly if that were to happen. Let's be honest.
It would be delicious. I would never be I wouldn't be able to eat again because there'd be no meal that would match up to how delicious that would be. Unreal.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what you. This is what happens a lot of time when Pat and I are just talking. We really like bashing on the Leafs. Sorry, Leafs fans. But we have some love for some of the players, but it's just so easy.
It's the low-hanging fruit. And, we're not the only ones that are doing it. Leafs fans do it, too. It's just...
They do it more than we do it, let's be honest.
Exactly, because it is so easy. Because, you know that if Arizona is... Toronto's going into Arizona. They haven't won 30 games at that point. Every single Leafs fan is going, oh no, this is it. Of course.
Bet the house on Arizona.
I would bet every penny I owned that would be the day that they would win. Just because that's how it's always written up. You look at, David Ayers as the situation. Or, Pittsburgh from this year where they're missing everyone important and they still lose. By a lot.
Before the game, it's announced that it's this goaltender's first game in the NHL. Well, the Leafs are going to lose. This kid's going to, stop 34 of 35 or 34 of 36. It's the way the Leafs go. Hollywood has run out of ideas with them, so they just keep rehashing the same idea over and over and over again.
And we keep paying to see it.
That's the worst part.
Yeah, When do you call it, though? If you were a Leafs fan, so say you grew up as a Leafs fan, or hell, even just as a New Jersey fan, if what happened to the Leafs the whole time happened to the New Jersey Devils, when would you say, that's it, I washed my hands, I can't anymore? Would it have been this past season? Would it have been earlier?
Not being a Leafs fan, it's so tough to get into that mindset. Because... you've seen it in your lifetime. I've seen it in my lifetime. My dad has seen it in his lifetime, but he was young. I think a big part of it is living where we do in southwestern Ontario. The Leafs are just such a thing. It's like this magical thing that they can kind of do stuff, but there's no other team in the league where a player can have stories written about them because they were seen at a hot dog stand outside of the arena once, and then that follows them for almost a decade now. Toronto is weird.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of them might just be stuck in their place stubbornly.
Yeah.
But who do you cheer for? It's not like, if you're a Leafs fan, it's not like you're going to cheer for another Canadian team. If you're old enough, you probably hate the Oilers, in which case you really hate LA because of Gretzky.
Yeah.
So you're not cheering for any Canadian teams. Maybe you look at, okay, Vegas just came in. Hey, they made it to the final in their first year. That'd be a team to cheer for. Maybe you look at Seattle, which could be, I know I haven't had the chance to watch a lot of Seattle games yet just because of the West Coast timing, but that's a team that if you weren't in the Eastern time zone and you were a Leaf fan, you try and find somebody to grab onto. New upstart team, you never know. I think a lot of Leaf fans, they're stuck in a rut. They don't know what to do, and the players are kind of in the same boat.
See, I know a lot of, or not a lot, but I know a handful of people that either I work with or, just friends. They were the hardcore Leafs fans, and they've really backed off. And I know a lot of them have actually shifted over to Seattle. And you know what? I've watched a couple of their games. They're fun. They're really, really, really fun to watch. Not as entertaining as the Canes, but they're gritty. They have the most amount of penalties because apparently all they do is fight in every single game that they're in. And
they're the Danbury Thrashers of the NHL.
Exactly. Well, maybe not to that level, but they're fun to watch. And you're rooting for them because they are the underdogs. Vegas, you saw it and you're just like, oh, wait, no, they picked really well. They picked these really, really good people. So as much as they were underdogs, they had this
Vegas
different
picked
echelon.
To win now.
Yeah, whereas Seattle, you could tell that they were picking, and they said so right from the beginning. I believe it was Francis who said cap space is king, and that's what they were shooting for, is how much cap space they could hold on to. And yet you look at this team, and it's just like, the island of misfit toys and Philip Grubauer, and it's so much fun to watch. They may not be the best team in the league, but if they're playing, if Seattle is playing a team at 7 o'clock and the Leafs and New Jersey and all the other ones aren't playing, hell yeah, I'm going to be tuning into a Seattle game because you're guaranteed a fight, first of all. And if they do win at home especially, you've got that weird salmon thing that they're doing where they throw fish at people in the crowd. And you know what?
Which,
I'm
that
okay
is
with that.
awesome. There's actually a story that was done on that. The first time I saw it, these fish are designed so well. I thought it was a real fish at first. So obviously with Seattle, they've got the famous fish market. That was a lot tougher to say than I expected it to be. That you go there, you get the fish thrown to you. They actually did that for the pick that they took from the Leafs. So there's that. So the players, the first 3 stars, they do that. They actually worked with artists in the area to make sure that the color was right, the feel, everything involved in it was proper, and they're actually going to be getting some more made that are going to be more native species to Seattle that are also going to include facts and how you can help out. So Seattle's going all in on Seattle.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And it's awesome. And one of their sponsors is Kraken Rum. When it comes to,
it wrote itself.
Of course, but when you look at the branding and the way that they've just adopted that city and the city adopted them, it's just, they did such a great job. The fact that they have the net zero or the carbon neutral building, that's so very Seattle. It's head to toe. So much fun. I highly recommend watching one of their games. They do a great job, and you got one of the Tanevs that he sees spooky ghosts, and it's great.
Well, and their arena, I'm not sure if you've seen this. So the Climate Pledge Arena, they basically had to rebuild an arena on top of an arena, but it's the only one in the NHL. It's more of the European style. It is sunk into the ground where the top level of the arena is ground level, and they actually have glass along the one side, so people walking in Seattle can stand outside on the glass, look down, and see an NHL game. To me, that is amazing. When you watch certain European hockey games, or you'd see it more with the World Juniors, and you'd see that look. To me, it just looks like what you'd expect, a Hollywood production of hockey to be, with the potentially getting the sunlight at times, or that fans outside able to look in and see the game.
Yeah, it like brings the community inside, even if they can't afford the tickets. And I know that in baseball, San Francisco, there's a standing area. You can just walk up to the fence and just watch the game for free. It's just right there, and it's in the outfield. You can see it. It's the archway. So it's pretty cool when teams do that, just by giving the community an opportunity to just watch the game, be a part of the game, and even if they're not paying, they're still able to experience what everyone else has experienced and have, like I said, that community feel. That's really smart. Like, as a marketing person, that's brilliant. What they've done, they've marketed it very well. Vegas did a very similar thing, not with like the design, but just the marketing of it alone. It's awesome. The two teams whoever they hired for them, they did a great job, and you can tell Seattle took a lot of notes from what the Canes have been doing, the Carolina over there with Storm Surge, and just having fun, making hockey fun again. That's what I've been noticing with Seattle, and they definitely took a lot of that from Carolina.
And hopefully December 19th is not the first time you watch a Seattle game. Toronto will be in Seattle to play them. That will be a late start, just as a heads up.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like the first season of Vegas. If you had a chance to watch any of their games, it's fun. Once the Storm Surge started, as you said, there are certain teams that you may not be a fan of, but they are a fun team to watch. Their socials are 100% worth the follow and then some, and you just never know what you're going to get. Like, who would have thought that Carolina, as much as everybody talks about their players and the fact that they're undefeated, half of the things people still talk about, it's their coach. It's Rod the Bod. It's why the NHL's weird, and Carolina goes right into that. And the Devils have some of that with their social media, but you can't quite force it, and Seattle's done very well at that. Vegas has done well at that. Seattle brought in the exact same team that Vegas had that built all of their pregame, during, and postgame entertainment.
Yeah, that's smart. They did a great job, and I mean, like you said, you can't force the entertainment online, and that's what it feels like a lot of the time with the team social medias. And I mean, like, speaking as a fan of Colorado, their social media, they try. You can tell that they try, but that's the issue. You can tell that they try. Whereas Seattle, it doesn't feel like they're trying. Like, the one thing that I saw that they did that I want to start doing just personally is during media day, they gave Philip Grubauer, the goalie that they paid all that money to bring in, they gave him a disposable camera and just said, go have fun, take pictures. And I was like, that is a great idea, because the photos came in and they were fun, lighthearted, just showed the team's character. And yeah, absolutely, they're doing it right, and it's good to see. And my question to you then, with Carolina, you said it was Rod DeBod, and that's one of the things they keep talking about. And obviously they're doing really well. So how much is that is the player's skill? And don't get me wrong, they're a fantastic team. But how much of that is because they're having fun?
Oh, I think that is at least 7 of the 9 wins at this point is because that team has fun. If they are down in a game, which they were their last 2, you don't see them on the bench with their head between their hands, looking defeated. They mess up on a shift, and you can read it on them through the screen, or you can hear it if you're listening. It's like watching some junior teams. You can tell that they're out there having fun, and when you can see that on a team, that is the best hockey that you can possibly watch.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I think that, with Brenda Moore behind the bench, like, he's clearly a really good motivator. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody got injured, he just puts on some gear and gets out there. He's definitely ice ready still. Hence the name, the Bod. But it's just, I don't know. You've got the Storm Surge. You've got Martinook doing, Mr. Svechnikov. Like, they just...
Mr. Svechnikov!
Exactly. You've got these silly things. You've got this camaraderie that you haven't seen in the NHL. Maybe years upon years ago.
It might exist in the NHL, but they make it public. It's like the center stage is the players and the fun they're having, not always being like, well, here's this very, very set up experience that we're doing with our players. It's like it's seeing the who is it? Washington. Do they not do the like cup check before every game?
Yeah.
Where it's literally they're just spearing each other, and it's one of those ridiculous hockey culture things, but it's a peek behind the curtain, which sometimes can be good, sometimes can be bad. It can lead to the nothing and all for nothing, but
yeah, it is what it is. But they got to have fun, and I mean that's what the Leafs needed. Like, that's what Marner was saying, that he wasn't having fun, and people were saying they don't look like they're having fun on the ice. So, I mean, with the game coming up, it's Boston. And I think that we need to talk about that quickly before we decide to wrap this up. But I think we need to talk about Boston and the Leafs.
Yeah, Leafs Boston, even if you hate both of those teams with a fiery passion, I think that's one of those ones that, because it's a Saturday night game, you kind of circle the calendar to be like, I'm at least going to check the highlights of, or at least look in on. Pending what happens with the Thursday night game against Tampa, this Leafs team is either going to come in woeist me, or they are going to come in on a hot streak, and I don't think it's going to matter. If the Leafs go in to Saturday night tonight having won their last game, I think Boston doesn't stand a chance. If the Leafs have a loss, I think that we are going to see a tight game, because I think the Leafs are finally starting to figure out some of that magic, and who would have thought it was mixing around the lines?
See, and I'm in a different mindset. If they go up against Tampa and they put up 92 goals, and then they come into Boston, or not even come into, but just play Boston, they're going to come in and be like, oh no, we're playing Boston. There's so much riding on this. It's Boston. Everyone's going to be watching it. It's Boston. They're going to be in their own heads. I'm calling that Boston is going to win this. They don't take a lot of they really do not take a lot of penalties. They are the lowest penalized team in the league, at least as of last night when I was checking out some stats, which is shocking with Marchand on that team. But they don't take a lot of penalties, which I know isn't really a big advantage for the Leafs for power play, but at the same time, I think that they, regardless of whether they're coming in hot or cold, they're coming in against Boston, and they're going to be in their own heads.
If this was pre-Jack Campbell, I would say yes. I think he's one of those players that he's described as like a puppy dog. He's just like the happiest person on the planet. I think his attitude is infectious, and if Marner is still happy, if he is still making plays like what he was, even in practice, a video came out earlier in this week. One of the moves that he made in practice, I've never seen a player do that before, and you could see he was having fun. When Marner has fun, the Leafs play well, and it's tougher for him to get down on himself when you've got the literal happiest human being on the planet as your cheerleader behind you, who's also your best goaltender.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Campbell is doing fantastic, but so much rides on Marner being happy. I guess, we said it earlier in the show that, Morgan Rielly was the heartbeat of the team. I think that I think I'm wrong on that. I think it must be Mitch Marner, because once he's happy, it seems that the whole team's happy.
Mitch Marner's the adrenaline of the team.
I guess that's true, yeah. Well, I think that is probably a pretty good place for us to stop for today. We could probably talk for another 14 hours, but nobody wants to hear that. So we're going to be closing this one off, but don't forget to follow us on all of those social media platforms. We've got a Twitter, we've got an Instagram, we've got a TikTok, we've got a Facebook, or Meta, whatever it is, who knows. But you can follow us there. That is at Ice Prep Podcast. Or you can follow us on Twitter. I am at ThatPatL, and Brian is at It's Woodrow.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us on episode 2. Episode 1 and episode 2, you can obviously find any of the major podcast providers. You can yell at your smart speaker. And as Pat said, I would check out especially our Instagram. We have some very interesting posts that we put there throughout the week. So thank you, everybody. We will talk to you again next week.